at my dad's place up in Sprucedale all week, and he's got this amazing therapeutic bed that we slept on. It's fantastic. It's one of those ones that, sinks right to the middle, right? It's like 40 years old. It doesn't smell because somebody sprayed stuff on it. Make sure it doesn't smell. And to be honest with you, it was lovely. It was lovely. My wife and I were forced to snuggle all week. It was amazing. Until it was really hot. And then she kept trying to shove the blankets on me and shove me off the bed. But I'm bigger than her. Have you ever been given good advice? Like sage advice? You ever heard that term, sage advice? You've been given good advice. It comes from maybe a parent, a good trusted friend, a grandparent, maybe, if you're lucky, one of your kids every now and then. Rarely, but sometimes. So here's an example. One of my favorite ones. I grew up in a house with a wood stove. The wood stove during the wintertime is hot. Good advice, don't touch the hot wood stove. Did I touch the hot wood stove? Yes, because I was an idiot, just like all children are sometimes. Or what about this? The most important decision you ever make is to be in a good mood. That's from the French writer Voltaire. That's a good one. John Wayne's got this one. Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyways. I like that one. I like the John Wayne walk, right? Saddling up anyways. Here's a good one. This one, I'm fortunate I did not learn the hard way. Don't lick porcupines. Right? Don't want to lick porcupines. So Google tells me that sage advice is sound, intelligent advice, especially coming from a wise or experienced person. And then this guy named Guy Kawasaki says in his book, Enchantment, good advice has two major components. Good advice is both true, and good advice is also concrete. It has steps to follow. This week's passage has, in my opinion, some of the most important advice that Jesus ever gave. We're coming down to the end here for him, and he gives this advice. And it comes in the love commandment, John 13, 34, 35. I have it tattooed on my arm. We put that up there. Wow, that's way off center. Oh well, this is what it is. I put it on my arm in 2016 when we were having the elections, right? And I was like, whew, gotta love others. But I didn't realize the significance of it until much later. There's some key points here. Okay, it says, I give you a new commandment, love each other just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. Key points. First of all, Jesus is not telling us to be nice to our neighbors. He is, but that's not the key point here. This phrase, as I have loved you, points to something very, very specific that when I first read this, I missed. And a lot of people that taught me about this passage missed. And then this other one, this is how they will know you are my disciples. But know what? By how? How would they know? By the way that we love others? So let's put this into context here. Love commandment. We'll read this. When Judas was gone, Jesus said, now the human one has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify the human one in himself and will glorify him immediately. Little children, I am with you for a little while longer. You will look for me, but just as I told the Jewish leaders, I also tell you now, where I'm going, you can't come. I give you a new commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. Okay. Key point here, first one that a lot of people miss. Jesus has now left the room. Before Jesus gives this commandment, Judas has now left the room. And in the next 24 hours, Jesus will be arrested. He will be tried. He will be tortured. He will be crucified on the cross. He dies and gets put in the tomb. And Jesus at this moment has accepted this as glory. And Judas leaves. Once he's been found out, Judas leaves. Jesus exclaims this glory. Not that the disciples actually knew what he was talking about at this time. They didn't find out until later. And Jesus gives this new commandment. And this commandment is both true and has concrete steps to follow. It's a big deal when we put it in context and we understand what's going on. So here's the kicker. We immediately have an example of what love is supposed to be when Judas leaves. This is not what to do. What Judas goes and does is not loving each other, quite clearly. So we also have an example in the next part of the passage of what not to do. But we need some backstory on my dear friend Peter, Simon Peter first. So when I did some research here, most scholars believe that Simon Peter was about the same age as Jesus. Okay? One of the things that Nathan actually pointed out to me this morning, Jesus and Peter are the only ones that are forced to pay taxes, which would have put them over the age of 21. So we know that somewhere between 21 and 30, where Jesus was, is where Peter sits. He was also the oldest apostle, and in all three synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Peter is said to have been caring for his mother-in-law, which means that he was married. He also lived and fished in Bethsaida. So here's what happens in the next story. This is the announcement of Peter's denial, right? You notice that we've got a little rooster up there in the corner. So it says, Simon Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, where are you going?" And Jesus answered, "Where I'm going, you can't follow me, but you will follow later." Peter asked, "Lord, why can't I follow you now? I'll give up my life for you." And Jesus replied, "Will you give up your life for me? I assure you that you will deny me 3 times before the rooster crows." This is super important here. We need to look forward into Peter's story to really understand what's going on here and why this is so important. So hold what I just said for a second. We've been doing this a lot lately. Put it in your pocket or somewhere that you can get at it in a little bit. And I want to point out something that happens in the epistles of Peter later, 1st and 2nd Peter. So 1 Peter 3, 8 through 9 says this: "Be agreeable, be sympathetic, be loving, be compassionate, be humble. That goes for all of you, no exceptions. No retaliation, no sharp-tongued sarcasm. Instead, bless. That is your job, to bless." Now, this is important because when Jesus rebukes the religious elite, he's actually rebuking us, okay? And the more higher level of authority that we have in the church, the more Jesus rebukes us, okay? 1 Peter opens with a very, very simple greeting, which is not common. It says, Peter, an apostle of Christ. Simple. "To God's chosen strangers in the world of the diaspora who live in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia." I'm always pronouncing all of those wrong. This is a simple opening. It says, I'm getting lost here. It's not common in the other epistles. All right, other epistles, Paul usually is like, the great follower of Jesus and all of that stuff. It's much longer, more long-winded, okay? And Peter was simple and very straight to the point. So this letter is to some chosen strangers. Any follower of Jesus who might read that letter. And which is weird because most of the other epistles are written to specific people in specific places. Romans and 1st and 2nd Corinthians, right? This is kind of like to whom it may concern, right? To all the people, all that are followers in these different lands. And throughout 1st and 2nd Peter, Peter is trying very hard to encourage these people that are obviously being persecuted in all these areas. He's trying to encourage them, point them back to Jesus, make sure that they're not preaching any false things and teaching the wrong way, okay? 1 Peter 1:22, as you set yourselves apart by your obedience to the truth, so that you might have genuine affection for your fellow believers, love each other deeply and earnestly. 1 Peter 2:8-9, all of you be of one mind, sympathetic lovers of your fellow believers, compassionate and modest in your opinion of yourselves. Don't pay back evil for evil or insult for insult. Instead, give blessing in return. Love each other. 1 Peter 4:8-9, above all, show sincere love to each other, because love brings about the forgiveness of many sins. Open your homes to each other without complaining. Love one another. Peter is constantly reminding us to love one another. Now, I wonder if during this time, when Peter's writing these epistles, he's remembering back to that conversation that he had with Jesus. I'm pretty sure he was. So John 13:37-38, Peter asked the Lord, why can't I follow you now? I'll give up my life for you. And Jesus replied, will you give up your life for me? I assure you that you will deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. And Peter opens up his second letter with a reminder. This is why you must make every effort to add moral excellence to your faith, and to moral excellence, knowledge, and to knowledge, self-control, and to self-control, endurance, and to endurance, godliness, and to godliness, affection for others, and to affection for others, love. And then Peter dives in and gets really heavy in the next section here. He says, so I'll keep reminding you about these things, although you already know and stand secure in the truth you have. I think it's right that I keep stirring up your memory as long as I'm alive. After all, our Lord Jesus Christ has shown me that I'm about to depart from this life. I'm eager for you always to remember these things after my death. Because after all, our Jesus has shown us, after all, our Jesus has shown me that I'm about to depart from this life. I'm going to assume that when he says this, Peter knows that he's going to die. And he's going to remember what Jesus said to him while he was writing these letters. Again, these are encouraging letters, and a reminder to live life the way that Jesus taught us and to teach that to others. Now, if we jump a little bit back into John, but near the end of John 21:18-19, I assure you that when you were younger, you tied your own belt, Jesus speaking to Peter here, you tied your own belt and walked around wherever you wanted. When you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will tie your belt and lead you where you don't want to go. He said this to show the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. After saying this, Jesus said to Peter, follow me. This is one of the last things that John records in his gospel account. Now, church tradition holds that Peter was crucified upside down on the cross in Rome by the Emperor Nero on what is now called Vatican Hill, somewhere around AD 64. This matches up with what is called the Great Fire of Rome, which happened at the same time on June 19th. So this was when Nero decides that all the Christians are really bad people, and now he's going out after them even more, and he's going to start persecuting them even more. Now, I'm wondering if anybody has made this connection yet and followed enough along to make the connection that we're heading into. So we'll go back to this one passage. It says, Simon Peter said to Jesus, Lord, where are you going? And Jesus answered, where I'm going, you can't follow me now, but you will follow later. And Peter asked, Lord, why can't I follow you now? I'll give up my life for you. And Jesus replied, will you give up your life for me? I assure you that you will deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. Jesus knew it wasn't Peter's time to follow him to the grave because Jesus had to die first. Jesus had to die as an example of what Peter was going to have to do. Here's the connection. Okay. So John 13, 34, 35. I give you a new commandment, love each other just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. So Jesus knew that he had to die by the time he gave this advice to love each other. So he knew he was going to the cross already. He knew that his love was going to be going to this cross. And this new commandment that he was giving, again, wasn't telling them to just be nice. He was telling them that there may come a time where you have to lay down everything for the love of others. Maybe a time when you have to lose everything because of love for others. He told Peter that it wasn't his time yet. No, you cannot follow me. It's not, you're not ready. Right? And I wonder, when Peter's time did come, was he willing? I can't find it. It doesn't say anywhere in the Bible whether Peter's time, when Nero arrested him and he was going to go to the cross, it doesn't say anywhere whether or not Peter went willingly. Jesus says that he isn't going to want to go. But at this point in time, every follower of Jesus clearly knew that, following Jesus wasn't going to be safe at the best of times. I give you a new commandment, love each other just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. So this willingness to give it all up, to accept the fate that at the end of the day, we may have to walk away from everything. We may have to lose everything that we've known. We may have to go to the cross. That is the love that Jesus is talking about. Not be nice to your neighbors. Well, not just be nice to your neighbors. So I wonder, this is how everyone will know that we are followers of Jesus, right? So I want people to look at my life and wonder what makes me different. I want people to look at me because I follow Jesus and it's obvious and people go, what's different about that guy? Do I look enough like Jesus that that's the case? I don't know. I don't know if that's a question that I can answer myself. Maybe that's something that some of you guys here in the room can answer. I don't know. But I want so deeply to be seen as someone who's blessing others. Like Peter says, because being a blessing is my job. Being a condemning jerk is not my job. Jesus didn't call me to be a condemning jerk. He called me to love others, and by loving others, this will be a blessing to others. So I try really hard. This was a rough week, so I try really hard to think about the practical aspect of everything that I try and preach on. So I'm wondering, one of the things that I would like to mention, this whole idea of being a blessing to others, if our actions, when we look at them, do our actions bless others, right? Is our sarcasm blessing others? Is the way that we interact with people blessing others? Is the words that we are using blessing others? Because in that blessing, does that look like Jesus? So that's one thing that I would like to leave with you guys. Because I have not felt the past week that I have been blessing others. Not always, that's for sure. I'll get the worship team to come back up. I'll pray for everybody. Father, I pray that we can be a blessing to others. I pray that in that, people will see Jesus and know us that based on that love and based on that blessing. It's not an easy request. It's not an easy thing to do. And I hope that we remember to look back at this and think about this passage that has been repeated over and over and over again for 2,000 years and look at it from a different perspective. Thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.